Nanda gasped, her eyes widening in disbelief. The garden was a hidden paradise, a riot of color and fragrance tucked away within the cold stone walls of the castle. Sunlight streamed through a vaulted glass ceiling, illuminating a vibrant tapestry of flowers, herbs, and fruit trees. Paths meandered through meticulously arranged flower beds, bordered by fragrant lavender and rosemary bushes. A fountain tinkled merrily in the center, its waters cascading over moss-covered stones. A carpet of soft grass and scattered petals covered the ground, dotted with marble statues, whose serene faces seemed to watch their every move. Birds twittered amongst the branches of apple and pear trees, their sweet melodies competing with a hidden and tuneless frog chorus. Nanda seemed to suddenly freeze, like one of the statues for a moment, in a daze, before her entire demeanor completely changed. "Lancelot! Lancelot! Lancelot! Lance!" I remember a frog chorus. Frogs singing, sitting in pink oyster shells, and some man, I think he had a woolly jumper on, looking through some old books, and the frogs they were singing. They were singing, but Grace liked to watch this, because she liked the man. She said he was a hunk. What does that even mean? It sounds so silly. I think his name was Paul. Nanda's breathless excitement filled the serene garden as she rambled about frogs and a mysterious man in a woolly jumper, her sharp claws tapping furiously against Sir Lancelot's armor. Despite her chatter, the knight kept his focus on the ornate map in his hands, his expression unreadable beneath his helmet. "Paul? Frogs? Honk," he muttered, half to himself, half in bemusement. He exhaled deeply, as if to say, "This is not what I signed up for." The garden's tranquil beauty provided a striking contrast to Nanda's exuberance. Sunlight danced off the water from the fountain, creating tiny rainbows in the mist. But the knight seemed utterly indifferent. His mind was fixed on their mission, not the garden's charm or his companion's curious reminiscence. Nanda, meanwhile, was unfazed by Lancelot's silence. She plopped onto the swing beside him with feline grace, her wide eyes scanning the intricate details of the map as her tail flicked lazily. "Is that the forest of yew there?" she asked, pointing with one claw. "It looks like the shape of a rabbit, don't you think?" Grace would say the rabbit looks dreamy. She's always saying things look dreamy. Lancelot sighed, lowering the map slightly to glance at her. "Nanda," he said at last, his deep voice steady but tinged with weariness. "Are you sure Grace isn't you? Or some figment of your imagination? You're so full of stories that even I'm starting to wonder where the line between them lies." Nanda gave an indignant sniff, her whiskers twitching. "Grace is very real and much taller than me. She's got hands instead of paws, for one thing. And she'd know exactly what hunk means, unlike you. Honestly, knights are supposed to know everything, aren't they?" Ignoring her jab, Lancelot folded the map and leaned back against the swing's thick ropes. He allowed himself a moment to close his eyes, listening to the bubbling fountain and the distant trill of bird song. "Nanda," he said finally, "if you've finished reminiscing about frogs and mysterious men, we have a quest to focus on. This isn't a holiday." "But a little detour never hurt anyone," Nanda said cheerfully. "Besides, you're on a swing, Sir Sirius. Hardly the image of knightly urgency, is it?" Lancelot cracked open one eye to glance at her, his stern facade softening slightly. He shifted his weight, letting the swing move gently with the natural sway of the ropes, the creak blending into the sounds of the garden. For a moment, Nanda thought she saw the ghost of a smile upon his face. "Fine," he said, "but only for a moment." The two swung quietly for a time, surrounded by the sights and sounds of the hidden paradise, an unlikely pair in an even unlikelier moment of peace. Eventually, Lancelot ceased the gentle motion of the swing and turned his attention to the map. Unfurling the ancient parchment, he studied it intently, the faint rustle of the map mingling with the soft sounds of the garden. His eyes narrowed in concentration, scanning the intricate lines and symbols as if deciphering a forgotten language. Suddenly, his expression brightened, a spark of realization lighting his face. "This is where it lies," he murmured, his voice low and measured. He traced a path on the map with a gauntleted finger, pausing at a marked location. "The heart of the Alchemist. But where?" Lancelot's gaze shifted from the map to the garden, his eyes sweeping over the vibrant flower beds, the statues, and the fountain. Was there a hidden door beneath the grass? A passage concealed behind the ivy? His mind raced, searching for a connection between the map's cryptic markings and the tranquil paradise around them. Nanda took a peek at it, her brow furrowing in concentration. The circled chamber, marked with the words, "The heart lies here," seemed to be located right in the middle of the garden. But there was nothing there, just a patch of vibrant green grass and a cluster of fragrant roses. "It doesn't make sense," Lancelot muttered, frustration creeping into his voice. "It's as if the vault is hidden in plain sight." "This mark," he continued, pointing to a red circle near the center of the map. "It corresponds to this garden. Or should." He gestured to their surroundings, his expression tight with frustration. "But there's nothing here. No vault. No entrance." Nanda tilted her head, her whiskers twitching. The map indeed seemed to suggest the vault's entrance lay at the heart of the garden. She hopped off the swing and prowled the area, sniffing at statues and prodding the ground with her paws. "There must be something," she said. "These places always have hidden tricks." Lancelot leaned forward, his brow furrowed in thought. "If there's a mechanism, it's well hidden. I've seen vaults before, hidden doors, false panels. But this..." He sighed, the tension in his voice betraying his frustration. As he spoke, Nanda's attention was drawn to the base of one of the statues. It was a figure of a robed alchemist holding a vial aloft. Beneath the hem of its robe, partially concealed by moss, was a small circular indentation. Her heart quickened. "Lancelot, over here," she called, pawing at the statue. He approached, sword drawn as a precaution. "What is it?" "Look," Nanda said, pointing with her paw to the small button-like indentation. Lancelot crouched, brushing away the moss to reveal the smooth stone surface. His eyes narrowed as he inspected it. "A pressure plate," he murmured. "Ingenious." Without hesitation, he pressed it. A low rumble reverberated through the garden, and the ground beneath the swing began to tremble. Nanda leaped back with a startled yowl as the earth shifted, revealing a wide stone slab that slid aside to uncover a spiral staircase descending into darkness. "Now we're getting somewhere," Lancelot said, his voice steady but laced with anticipation. He glanced at Nanda, whose fur was slightly bristled. "Stay close." "Wouldn't dream of doing otherwise," she replied, doing her best to mask the unease creeping into her voice. She padded cautiously to his side, peering into the yawning darkness below. The staircase spiraled deep into the earth, its smooth granite steps glistening faintly with moisture. A bluish light flickered far below, pulsing like a ghostly heartbeat. The air carried a blend of damp earth and something faintly rotten. Nanda wrinkled her nose. "I hope this isn't a mortuary. I've seen enough horror movies when Grace dozes off on the settee to know this is how things go terribly wrong." Lancelot moved first, descending with his sword drawn. Each step was measured and deliberate, his movements a silent ballet of strength and caution. Nanda followed close behind, her claws clicking softly on the stone. "Damn it, girl, retract them." "He's trying to be quiet," she scolded herself, frustration bubbling as she struggled to keep pace. Despite the tension, she found a modicum of comfort in Lancelot's imposing figure, though the oppressive atmosphere pressed heavily on her, threatening to completely unravel her nerves. At the base of the stairs, they emerged into a small room, suffused with a soft blue glow. The source of the light was invisible, yet it bathed the space in an eerie luminescence. On the left wall stood a grand walnut door, its carvings intricate and alive with detail. Dragons coiled across its surface, their eyes glinting as if lit from within. Nanda sniffed the air. "Why does this smell like Christmas?" Lancelot frowned, his gauntleted hand hovering over the handle. "Strange," he murmured. "This door should be locked." Nanda tilted her head, her tail flicking nervously. "So why isn't it?" He didn't answer immediately, his eyes narrowing as he examined the carvings. The alchemist's vault is meant to remain sealed, its knowledge protected at all costs. For it to be unlocked, he trailed off, his expression darkening. "Means someone else has been here?" Nanda offered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Perhaps," he said grimly, "or perhaps the vault itself is testing us." "That's not ominous at all," she muttered. Before she could voice any further concerns, Lancelot pushed the door open. Its ancient hinges groaned like a warning. The chamber beyond glowed with a pulsating green light, casting shimmering patterns across the walls. The air reeked of incense mixed with the sickly sweetness of decay. Symbols, glowing faintly, were etched into the walls, their patterns intricate and maddeningly complex. This would fascinated anybody else, but she was very used to glowing symbols now. "What is this place?" Nanda whispered, her fur standing on end. "A sanctuary of knowledge and temptation," Lancelot murmured, his gaze fixed on a solitary dagger resting atop a stone altar at the far end of the room. Its blade shimmered like liquid mercury, its surface rippling with fleeting images of shadowy figures. "Lancelot," Nanda said, her voice firm, "you don't have to do this." He didn't look at her, his hand trembling as it hovered near the dagger. "Do you think I want to? The king is gone. The kingdom teeters on ruin. If the Grail eludes us, this may be our only hope." "Or our end," Nanda countered, stepping closer, her tone sharp with urgency. "It's a risk I must take," Lancelot replied, his voice low, hardening with resolve as his gaze returned to the dagger. As his hand reached out, a sudden pulse of energy rippled through the chamber, distorting the air. The symbols on the altar flared, blazing with unnatural light, and the dagger let out a faint hum, resonating with the eerie green glow suffusing the room. "Wait!" Nanda cried, springing onto the altar to block him. Her fur stood on end, and her tail lashed wildly. "That thing is alive. Can't you feel it?" "Step aside," Lancelot commanded sharply, his jaw tightening. "I don't have time for theatrics." "Neither do I," she shot back, her voice rising as she planted herself in his way. "What if it corrupts you? What if you end up some kind of," she faltered, grasping for words, "Dark Knight cliché?" Lancelot froze, his hand inches from the blade, his eyes locked on hers, searching, challenging, yet tinged with hesitation. "You truly think so little of me?" "No," Nanda said softly, her tone shifting, less combative now. "I think you're desperate. And desperation blinds even the best of us, even the noblest knights." The atmosphere in the chamber grew heavier, suffused with an electric tension. The pulsing glow of the dagger quickened, matching the rhythm of a frantic heartbeat. From the very walls, faint whispers began to rise, disjointed, incomprehensible, but insistent. "Do you hear that?" Nanda asked, her fur bristling as her eyes darted around the chamber. "I hear it," Lancelot replied, his voice strained. Suspicion flickered across his face. "And I think you're right, but—" Before he could finish, the dagger erupted with light, its hum transforming into a deafening roar. The whispers crescendoed, coalescing into a guttural voice that reverberated through the chamber, shaking the walls. The shadows on the walls stirred, shifting and swelling into monstrous forms. Eyes glowing crimson, claws sharp as scythes. They lunged toward the pair with terrifying speed. "Get back!" Lancelot roared, his sword flashing as he drew it from its scabbard. Nanda leapt off the altar as one of the shadow creatures swiped at her, its claws raking the air just inches from her tail. Lancelot's blade sliced through the apparition, and it dissolved with a screech like nails on a chalkboard. "What did you do?" Nanda shouted, her breath hitching as another shadow closed in. "I touched nothing," Lancelot snapped, cutting down another creature with a precise, practiced strike. The dagger lifted from the altar, hovering midair. Its runes spun and rearranged themselves in a dizzying dance of light and shadow. The voice boomed again, shaking the chamber's foundations. "Who dares disturb my sanctuary?" The voice was ancient, resonant with power, carrying the weight of eons. "Sanctuary?" Nanda growled, crouching low, claws ready. "Feels more like a cursed death trap." A cold, grinding laugh echoed around them. "Foolish creatures. You seek power yet tremble at its cost." "Enough riddles," Lancelot barked, his blade steady in his grip. "I seek only to protect my people." "Then prove your worth," the voice commanded. The dagger flared with new intensity, and the shadow creatures multiplied, encircling them like wolves closing in on prey. "Fantastic," Nanda muttered under her breath. "Any brilliant ideas, Sir Hero?" "Fight," Lancelot said simply, his tone grim as he raised his sword. "Oh, very helpful," she retorted, darting aside as a clawed shadow lunged at her. The battle erupted in chaos. Lancelot moved with fluid precision, each swing of his sword cutting through the ephemeral forms. Nanda darted between the writhing shapes, striking where she could, her small frame granting her agility against their attacks. Yet no matter how many they felled, the shadows kept coming, their ranks endless. "We can't keep this up," Nanda panted, her voice hoarse. "That dagger, it's controlling them." Lancelot's eyes darted to the floating blade, its glow casting jagged, flickering shadows. "Then we destroy it." "Brilliant plan," Nanda shot back. "And how exactly do we destroy something that looks like it predates the universe?" "Leave that to me," Lancelot said, his voice steely with determination. With a surge of strength, he broke through the circle of shadows, dodging their clawed strikes and lunging for the dagger. As his gauntleted fingers closed around its hilt, the chamber was flooded with blinding light. Nanda felt an intense force pulling at her, as though her very essence were being unraveled. The air vibrated with raw energy, crackling with unbearable tension. "Lancelot!" she cried, her voice barely audible over the roar. "Nanda." His voice was distant, filled with panic and desperation. The light flared brighter, consuming everything. The world dissolved into a swirling vortex of colors, sounds, and sensations, and Nanda felt herself falling into an infinite void. When the brilliance faded, the chamber was silent. The shadows were gone, the oppressive voice stilled. Lancelot stood alone, the dagger now cold and lifeless in his hand. He scanned the empty room, confusion and dread clouding his expression. "Nanda?" he called again, his voice echoing into the void. But there was no answer.